Strategically located along the roads leading to the Channel ports in Belgian Flanders, the Belgian city of Ypres had been the scene of numerous battles since the 16th century. With the German failure at the Battle of Marne in September 1914 and the subsequent Allied counterattacks, the race to the sea began. This so-called race ended at the North Sea coast after each army attempted to outflank the other by moving north and west. This area of Flanders, described by one historian as having the driest landscape in Western Europe, contained the last gap through which either side could launch a defensive thrust. By October 1914, the Allies had reached Newport on the North Sea coast. The Germans captured Antwerp and forced its Belgian defenders back to Newport near Ypres. Under the command of Field Marshal Sir John French, the British Expeditionary Forces retreated to Ypres after Antwerp fell. They arrived there between the 8th and 19th of October to bolster the Belgian and French defence. The Allied position around Ypres took the shape of a small salient in the trench lines because it could best be defended from the low ridge of higher ground to the east, but it was vulnerable to superior German artillery. The BEF held a 35-mile-long line in the centre of the Bulge, while the French army in the area, commanded by General Ferdinand Foch, manned the flanks to the south of the city. At the outset of the battle, French and Foch both retained the hope of launching an offensive of their own. They believed a coordinated attack would enable the Allies to recapture the industrial city of Lille in Belgium, followed swiftly by Brussels. The new German Army Chief of Staff, Falkenhayn, quickly corrected their optimistic beliefs. Falkenhayn's Flanders offensive began on the 20th of October, when he ordered an advance to break through the Allied line and capture the ports of Dunkirk, Calais and Boulogne. He struck the Belgian defences on the Meuse River between Dixmude and Newport. The already weakened Belgian army fought valiantly, but the German actions forced Belgium's King Alfred to open the defences that held back the sea. On 27th of October, the Belgians flooded the land between their positions, and the Germans, along the 20-mile strip of land between Dixmude and Newport, created a 2-mile wide water barrier that forced Falkenhayn to halt and reconsider his plans. The second phase of the Flanders offensive was a series of assaults against the city of Ypres. To seize it, Falkenhayn had at his disposal the newly assembled Fourth Army, made up of units from the siege of Antwerp and 8 new divisions manned by underage recruits. Commanded by the Duke of Württemberg, the Cavalry Corps, and Prince Rupert of Bavaria's Sixth Army. These forces gave the Germans a considerable numerical advantage over the BEF's 7 infantry divisions and 3 cavalry divisions. For replacements, General French could only count on a few divisions of Indian troops already en route as reinforcements. The Indian units would soon prove to be outstanding fighters in both offence and defence. The attacks began along a much narrower front on the 31st of October, when the German cavalry drove a smaller British cavalry unit from its position on the Messines Ridge at the southern end of the salient. Shortly after, German forces engaged in General Douglas Haig's First Corps further to the north, but a ferocious British counterattack repelled the Germans. Thanks to the superior British rifle fire, they were able to hold this sector. The British rifles were so fast and deadly that the Germans mistakenly believed they were facing British machine guns. 11th of November, 2 premier German divisions attempted to break through the British lines just north of the Menin Road in the Nuns Wood, only 4 miles from Ypres itself. The Prussian Guards and the 4th Division sought the town of Hooge. The attack lasted all day. Initially successful in creating a breakthrough, the Germans were slow in exploiting their gains. The German indecisiveness enabled the British to assemble a motley collection of soldiers, cooks, officer servants, medical orderlies, clerks and engineers, who stemmed the enemy advance and eventually drove them back to their own lines. Fighting around Ypres would linger on until the 22nd of November, when the onset of winter weather forced a break in hostilities. The combat during this engagement was extremely confusing and unrelenting. After the fight, British survivors were content to say that they had been at First Ypres. No more information was necessary to explain what they endured. One soldier, Private Donald Fraser, explained it this way: "One was not a soldier unless he had served on the Ypres front. Less than half of the 160,000 men that the BEF sent to France came out of this encounter unscathed." After November 1914, the British would come to call these trenches the salient, and would remain as Ypres guardians for the rest of the war. There were eventually 3 major battles at Ypres, but the First Battle of Ypres was the most significant. First Ypres foreshadowed how the fighting on the Western Front would play out as the war progressed. Atrociously high casualty figures from each participating army, combined with fighting and living in trenches, would soon come to dominate the stalemate that was the Western Front.